On Prime Minister's statement.
When the debate was adjourned previously, the Honourable Gerry Brownlee was on his feet and he has 10 minutes to speak. The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Thank you for that opportunity. I'm very, very pleased to stand and speak today in support of the Prime Minister's statement delivered to this House on the 9th of February. Mr Speaker, this is a document that outlines the government's ambitious plan for the year ahead. It is a document that recognises that if New Zealanders are to be better off, we need to do some things to ensure that the income is there to make them better off. It is a document that says if we can be fairer to New Zealanders through the tax system, then we are going to look at it. If we can be fairer to New Zealanders through the benefit system, then we are going to look at that too. And there will of course be announcements in both those matters later in the year. Mr Speaker, this speech is traditionally given each year by the Prime Minister, and normally the media are able to comment on the way in which the Leader of the Opposition responds to that speech. The expectation is that the set piece from the Prime Minister will be somewhat dismantled by the free flow of speech from the Leader of the Opposition. That didn't happen this year, Mr Speaker, and it didn't happen because the Leader of the Opposition has no answer to this particular work plan. The opposition, in fact, to a man, have no answer to this particular work plan, other than that they don't like it.
Order. I'm sorry to interrupt the member. There is far too much discussion going on. I ask members if they wish to speak to another in the manner that they use the lobbies. Please keep the noise down and give some courtesy to the Speaker. The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, the only response that we've had this year from the Leader of the Opposition to the current economic difficulties that this country faces is cap the salaries of those who lead government departments. What he doesn't, of course, tell us is that 31 of those 35 people were appointed by Labor. 31 of those 35 people had their salaries approved by Labor, and what's more, signed off by Annette King, who was the then Minister of State Services. Now, I'm not going to say any more about that because I think that just shows the politics of envy that the Labor Party have got themselves caught in, and the fact that they are a party that has exceptionally low aspirations for New Zealanders. I do want to speak today, Mr Speaker, about the section in the speech that talks about New Zealand making more of our oil, gas and other minerals available to us throughout this country. Mr Speaker, it's a little known fact that New Zealand's third largest export product is now oil. Last year we exported some 21 million barrels of oil out of this country, and that is adding to the value that we have inside our economy in quite an extraordinary way. Most people don't see it, most people don't know it's there, but they do understand the effects of it because it does have a positive effect in making sure that the balance between what we spend and what we earn is kept to a pretty tight, kept within a fairly tight band. And it is one area, Mr Speaker, where we can rapidly increase the national income if we are bold enough to have a go at it. This summer, due to the, I think, encouragement of the national government over the previous year, we're experiencing the biggest drilling program in offshore New Zealand and onshore New Zealand and the oil and gas sector that we have ever seen. And I'm told that the results coming through so far are extremely encouraging, and I would expect later this year the size of New Zealand's confirmed oil and gas reserves to be greatly expanded. That's a very much a good news story. Mr Speaker, on the mineral front, I can sense that the various opposition parties are starting to gear up for a scaremongering campaign aimed at getting New Zealanders distracted from the benefit that can be accrued from very, very minimal intervention in the landscape and the extraction in a surgical fashion of minerals available to us in this country. I want to make it very clear, sir, that right now there are 82 mineral concessions on DOC land. Most of them, 82 concessions on DOC land, and most of those granted or reapproved by the previous Labor Green administration. Mr Speaker, mining occupies in total 40 square kilometres of this country's entire landmass, some 2 billion square kilometres, 2 million square kilometres, 40 square kilometres taken up by mining. Not all of that area actually involved in mining, just taken up as areas where mining could take place. And so the return to the New Zealand economy from that activity is around about $175 per hectare. Now, if you were to compare that, sir, to dairying covering some 20,000 square kilometres, 40 versus 20,000, and a return of 175,000 versus 3,500. I think the Green Party particularly need to consider the economics of this. And one of the interesting things is that as these organisations gear up supposedly to fight the government, threatening civil disobedience and all sorts of other things, I noticed that they are using every modern media communication device available to any one of us. Cell phones, computers, all that sort of stuff, all being used there. Yet what they're not prepared to recognise, sir, is that none of that would exist if someone hadn't extracted minerals somewhere to make the products, to get the minerals that make the material that go into the manufacture of those communication devices. There are hundreds and thousands, possibly millions of people throughout the world, in fact millions of people throughout the world, who are alive right now because they have surgical assistance or implants or other such, all because somewhere someone extracted some minerals from the ground. There are, sir, virtually no households in New Zealand that could survive today without the good effect of some mineral extraction somewhere in the world. And the question is, why are these parties so excited about using all of this equipment, so excited about modern medical technology, etc., so excited about some of the educational equipment that's around these days, so excited about all of the energy-saving technologies that are developing throughout the world, and then saying, well, not us, let someone else do that. That, sir, seems to me to be a position that has two sides to the argument. If you get my drift, sir, there's a word there that we don't use in Parliament. But it's unacceptable, in my opinion, for people to rail against this sort of consideration, because that's where we're at the moment, rail against this sort of consideration, but then take all the benefits of the activity at the same time. That is completely inconsistent, and I have to say, sir, I think somewhat hypocritical. Mr Speaker, New Zealand is one of the few countries in the world blessed with large deposits of what are called rare earth elements. They are a range of metals that have names that most of us have never heard and frankly most of us can't pronounce. The reality is that they are used in compact fluorescent lights, they are used in hybrid vehicles, they are used in wind turbines, they are used in catalytic converters, they are used as additives in some fuels to reduce consumption, they are used in flat panel screens, they are used in disk drives, they are used in digital cameras, they are used in all sorts of medical appliances. And the interesting thing, sir, is that the one other country in the world that has significant deposits at the present time is China. And we ask ourselves, should we say, no, we won't avail ourselves of the opportunities we've got in this country, we'll leave it to China. Ask me, sir, to tell you how New Zealanders are going to improve their incomes, improve their way of life, by leaving it to another country to corner a monopoly on these very, very important rare earth elements. And I'll say, sir, I don't know. Because, sir, if anyone on the other side of the House does know, they should be saying so. Because this is an opportunity quite unique to this country. And we are putting up a paper that does indicate where these metals are inside the New Zealand Conservation Estate. And we're asking New Zealanders to make a choice. And I make a suggestion to those who want to fight that. If it's also very important, don't use any media or communication equipment that relies on those metals. Prove yourself to be true to what you're saying is a message I would say to those people. Oh, you see over there they're saying, don't be ridiculous. The hypocritical stance is okay for us. That's what they're saying. Mr Speaker, this is going to be an interesting decision for New Zealanders. It is about